All right, City Council and Committee on Government Services co-post with the Committee of a Whole. We'll meet in person on Monday, May 12th, 2025 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing data around the count for marriages performed in City Hall, no new wedding, marriages, ceremonies, or City Council chambers during the City Hall business hours, including 45 minutes prior to opening and closing of City Hall, without prior approval of the City Council, and creating a policy concerning the use of City Council chambers that was, as of reviewing Salem Code, Chapter 2, Section 10, use of council chambers. For the meeting will be held in City Council chambers. Back up, let's see, the webinar above, password 475636. All right, so what we have here today, we have 3 items on our agenda. So again, I'll explain them. We have the data around the count of marriages at City Hall. We have the order for no new wedding, marriages, ceremonies in City Hall, and we have the creating of a policy in City Council chambers, as well as reviewing the Salem Code, Chapter 2, Section 10. So I'd like to take these out of order. We're going to start with Councilor Stott's Order 206, which is effective immediately. No new scheduled meetings or marriage ceremonies may be performed in City Council chambers during business hours. So we have tonight all members of the committee present, and from the Committee of a Whole, we have Councilor Jerslow, Councilor Cohen, Councilor Presnewski, Councilor Hapworth, and Councilor Watson-Felt joining remotely. We also have our Human Resources Director, as well as our ADA facilitator for the city, Facilities Coordinator. Thank you, Lisa Camerata. You're welcome. And I will start with Councilor Stott, if you'd like to start us off. Why you brought this in.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Varela. I guess I'll do a little repeating of what I said during the council meeting on the 24th. I don't quite remember exactly what I said. I was not prepared to open up this, but my order is pretty straightforward. It's effective immediately, no newly scheduled wedding. I said wedding or marriage ceremonies basically because I've heard them refer to both terms, but it's basically a wedding ceremony performed by the city clerk. May be performed in council chambers during City Hall business hours. I added the including 45 minutes prior to the opening and closing of City Hall because once 4 o'clock comes or 7 o'clock comes on Thursday, yes, the doors lock and people can't come in from the outside, but people are still working in their offices. I mean, I wish I had a job that as soon as it turned 5 o'clock, my day was done and I was running out, but I know I was running here for the 6 o'clock meeting. That never actually happens. So 45 minutes is kind of the buffer to let people leave their offices, finish up the work that's being conducted. Members of the public could walk in at 3:55 and meet with somebody in the office for 30 minutes. So that's where that 45-minute buffer came in. So that's basically the gist of it. No newly scheduled weddings. I did also add a second line requesting a list of what has been scheduled in here so as to not to break anybody's wedding plans, really. You know, if they have a wedding scheduled here next month, I don't want to ruin anybody's plans, but I don't know. I was just going through my email. I don't know if that's been provided yet, but that was the request on the second paragraph. Does anybody know if that's been provided? It hasn't. Okay. So I'm going to go on the assumption if it hasn't been provided, there's no scheduled weddings in council chambers, and we won't be crushing anyone's wedding dreams of being scheduled here.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Stott. Under discussion, Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair Varela. And I appreciate that we're having a separate conversation about the weddings as opposed to other events going on in the chambers. A wedding is a very private event as opposed to a swearing-in ceremony or a flag raising or a scout ceremony. And I will start by saying a couple should certainly be able to get married at City Hall, you know, during working hours. It's just not in the chambers. The problem has been with the chamber being used as a wedding hall in the configuration of the building and ADA compliance. I'd like to point out that we do have a policy in place for weddings in the chamber about blocking doors and such from 2024 that couples are informed of. And yet we still have many incidences of blocked doors, complaints, and comments being made to people walking through. I have a photo of the door on this side of the chamber being completely blocked not long ago. Just on May 1st, the hall entering the chamber over in that direction by the water cooler was completely blocked, with a wedding party having a photo shoot with a tripod set up, and staff asked to get by, and they acknowledged that there were instructions not to block the hallway access, and yet there they still were. And someone from the public, I doubt, would feel welcome to ask people to move. I don't, especially if we could notify staff, I don't think someone for the public would think it is okay to be able to voice that I can walk through here and you have to move. So I think, we've definitely created a really uncomfortable situation. And then the clerk's info she provided us too, like she mentioned that sometimes when a wedding party is booked, the party will say they are bringing 3 people and then they walk in with 9. And the council, as we all know, we're responsible for this space, and we're not here when they happen. So it really, to me, comes down to 2 scenarios would occur here moving forward. Either city staff would have to be utilized to monitor the wedding parties in the chamber throughout the building and before, during, and after, setting up pathways or maybe screens or dividers. This is a lot of staff resources to ensure they're not blocking access or just causing, an atmosphere of discomfort or embarrassment for the staff or the public in here to conduct city business, or we won't be complying with ADA laws. And we already have a discrimination complaint on the basis of disability made to the city. So none of these scenarios land well, and even if we had the council approve, if any application to get married here I'd like to reiterate, I'm referring to during working hours. We're just not here to oversee it. So that really doesn't change the dynamics, of what's going on in the chamber. So I do hope we circle back to the simple solution that was the original order, that if a couple wants to get married in the chamber, there is a lot of opportunity outside of working hours. We close at 12, so 1 o'clock on a Friday would be fine. There's Saturdays. There's after 5 o'clock on most weekdays. So that's what I'm hoping we consider tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Merkel. And I just want to say, every city hall is different. And unfortunately for us here at 98 Washington Street, there's only one way in, one way out concerning ADA access here. That's unique to Salem's chambers. And I know this is why we're talking about it. It's problematic, and we need to be mindful of our ADA accessibility here. So that's what we're talking about this. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Chair. So this whole issue and all the different orders in this committee, there's a couple of things going on here. One is the use of this room overall, right? The public use of this room. Who gets to use it? Who decides? What is the written policy for who uses it? And I think that needs visiting. It needs us to sit down and come up with a policy of what goes on here. It shouldn't be left up to the clerk to make that decision completely. And so that's one piece, is a written policy on that. The other is a written policy on weddings and if weddings should happen in here. And then the third piece to all of this is the actual layout of this room, which, as many of you know, I've tried very hard to come up with a way to reorganize all of this furniture under the rule that we can't lose any of the furniture, which really is a shortcoming. And I think we really need an adult conversation about the purpose of this room. And that goes with the policy of how it's used, and it goes with the furniture in the room, the purpose of this room, whether it's meant to be a museum of the way government was set up 200 years ago, or whether it's supposed to fit the needs of today's government. I think, this is my opinion, if we had the ability to edit some of the furniture in this room, we could come up with a way to have weddings on this side of the room with a nice access path over there, which keeps the weddings over here and happening and not disturbed by anyone walking through or the city solicitor rolling through. Like, this has to be kept accessible at all times during business hours, and that's the bottom line. So we need a policy on weddings, we need a policy on the use of the room outside of weddings, and we need to really have an adult conversation about the furniture in the room and how to better set it up. And I am ready to dig into all of that. But for now, until we can get that policy written, and I've already gotten, some volunteers to help work on that, with Lisa Camerata, with Beth Renard, with Eileen, hopefully with help from Meg, since she's been involved in this for a couple years too. I would love to pass this, banning weddings in this room until we come up with a policy on how it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, and how we can move forward in a way that keeps this room accessible, which is the law.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Varela, not being a member of the committee. I very much support Councilor Stott's order. I think I would have voted for it at the council meeting in a couple of points. I just don't feel comfortable walking through a wedding no matter what. I have many times had meeting with the mayor or the mayor's staff, and a couple of times had a follow-up meeting. So this is a personal story with the city solicitor, and the wedding took quite a long time. I am just not physically able to walk down these stairs, walk down the hall, up the other stairs, and I have less mobility challenges than a lot of people who work here or who need the services of the city staff, okay? And it reminds me of when I worked in the previous annex and the elevator was broken and human resource had to actually staff the hallway walking into the building for people who needed to get upstairs. And, in the emails that the city clerk has sent us, constantly reminds us that it's working past 4 o'clock. And I look at this as being, how productive you are. If you're working X amount of hours, and instead of scheduling the wedding for 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just schedule it for 4:45 or 1 o'clock on a Friday. I also feel like, to Councilor Marcillo's point, until we are able to redesign this room, and I'm not actually comfortable in the desk and the seats that we sit in, because I have a back issue. But if I don't feel comfortable asking city staff to rearrange furniture for a wedding so that people can get by, and to Councilor Merkel's point, who's going to monitor that? And who's going to pay for that person or persons who work for the city to move that? So I do have opinions about the other orders, but I'm hoping that this committee will positively refer out this order. At least in the meantime, we change ordinances all the time. We can change this when it's appropriate in the future. But for now, we should not allow any weddings during working hours or that time period in between. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cohen. Just for clarity, my goal tonight is we're going to vote on each order and move through the list and not just do it all at once. We're going to, one at a time, we'll get through. Councilor Hepworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Lisa. That's her.
Listen, you have to make it quick because Casey moved saw me moving furniture and they want to hire me. I'm trying to make a little chuckle. Oh, all right, I have to behave. Sorry, just trying to make.
Lisa, as ADA coordinator, is this room currently ADA accessible right now?
Yes, I mean, you saw me with the tape measure.
Yeah.
With all respect, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but that was why I got here a little early. We want a 36-inch width path at least, right? That's the minimum. So that's why we were checking this. Darren helped me. We pushed all of that furniture back. I think that, I mean, I know it's accessible now because you would either take the elevator and come through, or if you needed to go through to use the restroom or come back. But we would need to take some steps to make sure that this stays this way, right? Like, this door is to be open at all times. This door is to not be blocked at all times. I did see the rules. I think that those could probably be enhanced if, depending on which way your vote goes, whether the ceremonies take place during the day or not. I also think that we could purchase some whether they're brass, very similar to what we have here, and have it as a pathway. This needs to be, clear at all times, no matter what's happening. I mean, it's doable, and I think that, maybe this whole matter has just brought all of this to a head, right? I mean, there are times there are swearing-in ceremonies where this whole area is completely blocked with people watching, which I understand, and that's really important for the people watching, whether it's for a wedding or for whatever. But we need to make sure that we stay on top of it. And, some nice signage and stanchions or something that looks presentable. I mean, I know the city clerk mentioned a screen. I understand that, and I think that'd be a nice, easy fix. But we could get something decent looking, right? And I think that some of we'll talk about this probably at my budget meeting tomorrow, but the receipts from handicap parking violations funnel to the Commission on Disabilities. Certainly purchasing something like this, I would certainly advocate with the Commission to make this area accessible. Whether weddings take place here or not, we need to take some firm steps to keep this accessible at all times.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that gets to the heart of the question. And the council, we can decide how we want on the wedding question, but I think it's inevitable that ceremonies will be taking place in this room at various times throughout the day, and I think that it probably always has that way. I think that the biggest issue we have here is not, in my opinion, is not what I think to be an interdepartmental dispute that I feel, frankly, a little resentful to have been brought into the middle of, not resentful of my colleague, but resentful of the entire situation that has brought us to this place and time. But I think the biggest issue we have is we have ADA concerns coming through this room, not just during a wedding ceremony, but during any potential ceremony. And I think that if we can solve for the question of how do we keep this room ADA compliant, whether that's through furniture or it's through stanchions, I think that probably is a better long-term solve than the wedding question. But to the wedding question, has the city clerk come to you and asked you for your opinion as the ADA coordinator on if her weddings are ADA compliant? Has this been a conversation that has happened?
Yeah, actually, she and I have spoken about this since this matter. We've been talking about it since, I think, maybe the last council meeting, I think, because I knew that she was here for a meeting and it came up. And we started talking about it, right? And actually, I was going to come over here on Friday afternoon after hours, but I got tied up. I was in the office for a good part of the afternoon. And that's why I came over here today, because we had talked about moving things. And that's when she had mentioned the screen, which I think she put in the email that she sent to everyone today. I just don't think it's going to look that great, to be honest. I mean, I think that we should do just something that has a nice classy look to it, which would be like brass with velvet ropes. That's what I think would look really nice. But yeah, she and I have talked about it. Yes, we have talked about it.
Do you believe the weddings are ADA compliant right now?
No. I mean, I've walked by and I've seen the door shut. You know what I mean? And I'm probably just as much at fault. I probably should have spoken up and I didn't, right? I mean, I know they don't take that long. And, the times that I've been in and out of the mayor's office, when I would see the door shut, I don't think it's been shut for a while. And I did hear about the issue with the tripod. I didn't see it. I understand that happened out there. I'm glad that you explained it, because I had heard that happened the other day too, which is why, we need signs. This door needs to be open at all times. I mean, and we need to enforce it, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing about ADA compliance. Once you're aware of it, you can't not see it anymore. Like, no matter what it is. Once you realize there's an issue, that's inaccessible. I mean, I drive downtown and I'm like, these tables aren't accessible, right? So I'm like emailing Vula today, like, get out there. So it's the kind of thing where once you're aware, it just makes you even more aware. And then you just want to dig and dig and dig. That's why you saw me with the tape measure. Like, even if you were to back up, I want to make sure that's at least 36 inches, right? So we're trying to make like some space for that.
I guess the other question I think that is on a lot of councilors' minds is a wedding itself inherently something that, regardless of the space that is left open, does ADA have anything to say about, I guess, like social norms or the sanctity of a wedding and people's sort of hesitancy to walk through that? Is that a concern as far as ADA is concerned, or is that just a sort of an operational, like this amount of space needs to be available and this needs to be accessible?
That's a really good question. And I'm just saying that because that's like the good thing to say, but it really is, because I've been thinking about that, right? Because it was brought to my attention that, people are uncomfortable, and I agree, right? Who wants to crash a wedding? But if we're taking all the steps we can do to make a space accessible, then some of that is I'd have to get over that, right? If I saw people, saying their vows over here, I might be like, oh. But you know what? I need to get to the other side of the room, and there's a space, and I can do that. So I don't know offhand. I don't know that there's an ADA issue, because that in the end, that's sort of on me walking through here saying, oh my God, I don't want to walk in front of a wedding. They're saying their vows. But I got to get to work. Do you know what I mean? So I need to get to the other side, or I need to use the restroom, or I need to go down and talk to the city solicitor, or I have a mobility issue and I need to get to the elevator. So I'm just going to just go, and I have a space that's there, and I would go.
How would you ask that question, or what authority would you look to find out if something was ADA compliant, or to get, what's the final word on that, other than just, would it be Beth's reading of ADA, or what is the how does the city look to these sort of things?
So sometimes I'll reach out to the Massachusetts Office on Disabilities. I think they just changed their name, but MOD. Sometimes I've reached out to IHCD because they did our transition plan. Just Google once in a while. I'll just Google something. I try to stay away from all the AI stuff because you really need to make sure it's accurate. But again, this wondering about someone's, the social norms and how one feels walking through when something is happening, I don't really have an answer for that. Like I said, I'm not trying to say the person has to own all of it. Yet, if we're taking every step we can, right, to make sure that the area is accessible, I know we try to be better, right? We always say that in City of Salem, we try to be better. There's a minimum, and then there's more, and we try to do more. So if that's something we can work on, I guess we could. We're making the space accessible, and like I said, that's the minimum. I'd have to look a little further.
Okay. Thank you. And I think the best thing we can come out of this with is just an understanding of how to, because I don't know, I don't know that I want to go down the path of very strictly defining everything that happens in this room, because I want to give the mayor the opportunity to, if he has school kids coming in, to meet with the school kids and not have to schedule it through the city clerk, or to have swearing in ceremonies, or to have visiting students from OTA be able to come in here. I think this has always been the way this space has been used. And I think if we can keep it ADA accessible, then that, to me, pending any answers around weddings being something different, which I could be completely open to understanding that a wedding is a different thing potentially than a meeting with kindergartners. But I think that's the crux of it. And again, I do think that we have been thrust into a dispute between departments that has, in some cases, become personal. And the key question here is just, what is ADA accessible and what is not ADA accessible? Thank you, Lisa.
Anything else?
Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Merkel.
For me?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Looking behind me right now, looks like that table was moved back. So during our normal council meetings, if that table's pulled forward so people can sit behind it, that takes us out of ADA compliance. Am I right?
Well, it would if the furniture's moved. You're absolutely right, unless, you have me out there with the tape measure.
Right.
But, so, no, I'm sorry. I'm not making a joke. It's just, these are things that we have to pay attention to. So you're 100% right about that. There was at one point, I think it was 37 inches, and I'm like, no, we need to move it back. It's just not going to work. That's why Darren and I were moving it. Yeah, if somebody moves that and moves it too far forward, you're right, which is why we need to put something up so that nothing gets moved.
So
is my thought anyway. At least for the immediate question.
that leads me agreeing with Councilor Masillo in regards to, we need to look at the room and reconfigure it. Now, this is a place of assembly, and as I look around, I don't see anything saying the amount of occupants we are legally allowed to have within this space, according to fire code, ADA compliance. And I can honestly tell you, I've seen, when we get a lot of public in the meetings, I guarantee you we're over occupancy. So I think that needs to be something that needs to be looked at as well, if we're going to go that route. And in my opinion, if somebody wants to get married within the chambers, this is a public building. We can't dictate what goes on in the public building. It's either for everybody or for nobody, one or the other. We can't sit here and say, well, you can't get married up there, but yet we can have the Boy Scouts come up here and hold their ceremony. they're both ceremonies. So that's my opinion when it comes to that. But I really do think we need to look at the amount of occupants we should have in here between the fire department and the building department, and what we can do to make it ADA compliant, at least behind me, 100% of the time, even during our council meetings, because I can tell you right now, I know for a fact that we've been non-ADA compliant during our regular council meetings.
Right, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
And it goes back to, we need to be better enforcers. I'm not finger pointing, it's just we need to be better enforcers, right? So if that means we do end up putting something up there, then, that can't move. And whether that's, Darren, the custodian here at the time, or maybe even one of us, if I'm here for something, hey, that needs to get moved back. Like I said, it goes back to awareness. Whether it's a wedding or not, right? Whether if it's a council meeting, right? I mean, just when we talk about weddings, just your regular council meetings and your committee meetings, if that gets moved, and now you can see how much space there is now. Things start to creep. I get that, but we're all aware now.
Excellent. I'm going to go with Councilor Burton. Who's going to let everyone once, and then I'll get to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Farrella. Through you to Lisa. Lisa, I was taking down some notes, some of your ideas, trying to visualize exactly what you said. To me, in my opinion, a lot of it does seem to make sense. I'm looking at the cost of doing something that would be good looking and permanent.
Right.
Because that's what it is. If we're going to make this ADA accessible, this is ADA accessible 24/7. It stays that way. And it has to still kind of look good. Your idea about having stanchions with velvet ropes on both sides, and I'm thinking maybe a carpet that shows that this is a walkway. I'm not sure, but I'm looking at dollars and cents in this, and you said that there is funding available to do this through the ADA?
Yeah, I would have to put it in front of my commission, but, there is money that is in the handicap violation account, right? So we've used that money to purchase the accessible picnic tables, assistive listening devices. We donated to the adaptive sports program at the high school, the unified sports, a couple of years. We helped fund the lift that goes to the concession stand at Forest River. So, that money can't be used for one individual, but for something to benefit persons with disabilities. And clearly, in my mind, that would certainly meet that criteria. Now, I like the idea of a carpet, but we'd have to make sure that's accessible, right? So we need to think about that. And then the other thing is, depending on a stanchion, depending on how big, see how this is a base? It could be 36 inches from here to here, but this base is going to take up 4 inches of that. So we need to, just be mindful of all of that. And like I said, this is stuff you don't think of until you start working on it and you say, oh, wait, you know what I mean? So getting back to your question, yeah, I think something like that might work. It's definitely worth looking into, no matter what happens.
Thank you. And I agree with Councilor Morcello that maybe we should be taking a good look, a deep dive into somehow reconfiguring the room to make it look good. I agree with Councilor Harvey. This is a public space. It's historic, it's regal. When anybody has anything in here, regardless whether it's a wedding or a ceremony, people feel a certain pride when they're allowed to come into council chambers. It's a public access, it's for the public, and regardless of who it is, as long as they go through the right process, which we are talking about what that process is going to be. I think that this room should be available to people to take advantage of what we've built as a city up until now. Thank you.
Councilor Merkel, then Councilor Cohen, then Councilor Studd.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to Lisa Camerata for being here tonight. And I really appreciate this important conversation and your due diligence and obvious passion for ADA compliance. So I appreciate that. And the conversation regarding this. It's the public that is my concern, when it comes to, circling back to the weddings, because the feedback I've gotten hasn't been when there's some other kind of ceremony going on. It's always that it's intimidating walking through such a private ceremony. To give some context, for the public also, for the numbers we received data on how many weddings have been performed, during working hours, and it's over 100, and that in a 7-month period. When you think of how many weekdays are in 7 months, that's, that averages over, an everyday event. Or if it's October, you could get 4 or 5 weddings in a day. So if we are thinking of oversight for the weddings, and like I mentioned, wedding parties are a little different than other events, and if they're in the hall and other areas, the oversight would be a heavy lift. With the numbers that are presented for the number of weddings that are occurring. And it is the public because of the discomfort. And I appreciated Councilor Hapworth and your, and also you, Lisa, touching on the atmosphere we create. If something is is not comfortable and intimidating. And I really feel it's the public coming here that wouldn't feel comfortable coming through a wedding. And they wouldn't know that we have, they wouldn't know what we have in place, the wedding chamber rules for weddings that they are allowed to walk through. And I think it's just, to say it's uncomfortable is, I would think, is an understatement. And also just, I hope whatever discussion we have, because I do think we absolutely need to dig into a policy. I think that's a great idea for the use of this chamber. But if we can be mindful of what can be an intimidating atmosphere, and also that the policy we have it here, and it hasn't been followed. So as you said also, Lisa, it's a matter of, anytime you put a policy in place, we have to find the resources to oversee it. Again, I'm not sure why regarding weddings. As a reminder, anyone can get married here anytime. We have the space. The clerk can marry a couple in the clerk's office anytime. We would never be shutting down that service. I would never support shutting down the public accessing being able to get married here. Thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Varela, not being a member of the committee, and I'm frankly uncomfortable with a lot of this dialogue. I'm the council liaison to the Disabilities Commission, as Councilor Stott was last year, and I was the year before. And Councilor Morcillo, myself, Human Resources Director, and others went out and monitored outdoor dining. And I did about 40% of the available outdoor dining at the time. And I can tell you that I don't think a lot of the furniture or anything in this room is accessible. I actually asked the city clerk, because I, at some point, am going to need to use a wheelchair, what would happen in that case in this room if I was a counselor. And I was told that I could sit, like the solicitor does. And my reply was, I think I should be able to sit at the table like everyone else. I also want to say that there is a difference between weddings and other public events in this room. The city clerk is allowed by law to do weddings and gets compensated for it. When we have Japanese families or Girl Scouts or other people come in and use this room, city staff is not getting compensated for that time. And I do believe, I got married, my wife and I got married in New Orleans. A judge, Justice of the Peace, married us. And when my wife called and said, when can we get married in the chamber, we were given one time during the day. If you want to get married, you get married that time. If our city clerk says, if you want to get married in the chamber, it has to be 4:45 Monday through Wednesday or 12:45 on Friday, I'm pretty sure that wedding parties will do that. Otherwise, they can get married like they do often in the clerk's office. I also feel like the policies that we've established, that this particular body established when we did the, for example, the flag raising policy, that has been implemented in a discriminatory way. And I will bring up my concerns when we get to the policy standpoint, I just don't understand until we have 100% confidence that this is going to be an accessible room that people are going to feel comfortable walking through. I mean, when I've sat in that chair over there waiting for the wedding to get over, the wedding party has taken up this entire doorway most of the time. I don't know why we can't vote on this, and then when this body feels comfortable, with the help of the Human Resource Director, that this room is accessible enough, then we change it back. That's it. I think at this point, I'm hoping that this committee will vote positively to change the rule for weddings. That's it. And then we can talk about policies and do a deep dive into that stuff. But weddings are different. Thank you.
Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Varela. I just have a few quick comments in response to what I've been hearing from my fellow councillors. And thank you to Ms. Camerata for the information provided. I'm just going to repeat what I said in the council meeting, that I don't think it's the responsibility of those that need the accessibility to ask for the accessibility, whether it appears that the bare minimum is there or not. We should never be going for the bare minimum. My second point is, I'm going to agree with my fellow Councillor Cohen. I actually would be a little weary about using funds received by the Disability Commission to turn council chambers into a wedding venue. I do think we could use funds to provide some more accessibility for council chambers in regards to our meeting and public space and how we all interact as well. These chairs are not just uncomfortable, but there are also accessibility issues. What if we ever have a council president that has accessibility issues? What's going to happen there? So these are a lot of conversations that need to happen. I do have a question for Councillor Marcillo. You stated rules regarding the furniture. I would love to know what those are. In the summer of 2022 or 23, Councillor Marcillo and I came in this room and literally moved around all of the furniture trying to make it into an accessible we actually had one kind of test meeting where everybody said, move it back. I believe Micah actually came in to help us to give her interior designer standpoint, but it's a difficult challenge, but we are ready to tackle it and it needs to be tackled. We've been thinking about this for a long, long time. So I would definitely be up for, I think it would be great to use any funds for something along those lines. And then finally, I'm just going to go back to the original order. This is just about weddings in council chambers during business hours. There was a comment that we can't dictate what goes on in a public building and chambers. Well, we essentially do now with the clerk doing that. So until that is resolved and fixed, until anybody can come in here and perform a wedding ceremony, which can't happen right now. Right now, only the city clerk has weddings in here. That's not a public access, and the city clerks both. That's not a public access ability right now. So until all of that is fixed, which is a much larger conversation that's going to take time, and knowing that there are no currently scheduled weddings in chambers, I think this is a very simple resolution to just pause all at this time. We're all councillors. We can all put another order in to change it when things change. But for now, until the policy is there, with that said, I would like to make a motion that we recommend to council.
I'm going to allow public comment just to go through.
Sure. Well, okay. I can still make my motion in the public comment so they know which way we're going to motion. I would like to make a motion that we refer as a committee that the order in front of us about pausing marriages in council chambers be approved.
Second.
All right. So we got a second on that. Under discussion. All right, public comment. Anyone in the audience would like to come up and speak if you so shall? This is your opportunity.
Time for me to sit down. Can I comment on, just wanted to be, no, just on something that you said, and you're 100% right. But my idea of making this accessible is no matter what happens in here. Right? I mean, I'm here during the workday with Beth, right? And we're moving chairs out of the way and we're like, you know what, we're going to do something about this. So I just want to be clear that, regardless of what happens in here, this room needs to be accessible. And I think that, at least our steps tonight to try to do that, it's possible. We just need to make it more permanent. Okay. So the public, right? So that's not me.
Thank you. All right, any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Farrella. Alphonse Wright, 23 Nursery Street. I think that the underlying issue here is the ADA compliance. The fact that it has not been for as long as I've been coming to the chambers, for 5 years now, is a failing, and you all have the ability to correct that failing, and it sounds like you're going to, so I applaud you on that. I do want to speak to the public access point, and I think Councilor Stott said it well. The weddings and other ceremonies are not the same, and we're not, what I hear is you're not banning weddings, you're setting regulations on weddings, and that is a very different thing. So I think that is within your purview and does not infringe upon the public access, because anybody can still do it, it's just a set frame. And there are 100 of regulations where public can access something, but within restraint. And I don't think you would be infringing upon public access or discriminatory in public access if you were to set parameters as far as times, but still anybody can come. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience would like to make public comment? Going once, going twice. Anyone on Zoom land? Anyone on Zoom land? Oh, all right. Judith, I'll allow you to speak. All right, you can unmute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Varela. I would just like to echo Mr. Wright's comments and encourage you to take action as per Councilor Stott. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. So Marcelo.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say how embarrassing it is to hear that Lisa Camerata and Beth come in here and see the accessibility issues. Our own city solicitor, who relies on a wheelchair and never, ever, ever complains about accessibility issues, either in this building or in restaurants or anywhere. And we need to do better. And it's so embarrassing to hear that. And this has been an issue for years now. We've been batting this issue around, and we just need to fix this. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor that this is referred to council for a positive recommendation, seconded by Councilor Marcillo. Go ahead, Councilor Merkel.
Sorry, Chair Varela. I just wanted a point of clarification. That's all. There's a few things floating around, and I didn't quite. Could you just repeat what it is we're passing? Sorry.
Sure. So my motion was just to pass or to recommend back to council order number 206 with no changes to it, just effective immediately. No newly scheduled weddings or marriage ceremonies may be performed in council chambers during City Hall business hours, including 45 minutes prior to the opening and closing of City Hall without prior approval of the City Council. There is actually, this brings up a question, there's a line in there that says the clerk may honor previously scheduled wedding marriages that are already reserved and scheduled for council chambers. But she said there aren't any. Is that what everyone's saying? So we could probably strike that second sentence.
Thank you. I just wanted to offer amendment that we also remove without prior approval of the City Council, that because we're going to be waiting until I think that just makes it a little muddled. Does that mean we're still taking applications and the council will be asked? I had thought the intention was to put a complete hold on weddings in the chamber until we meet and explore a full policy. So I'm just a little confused on why without prior approval of the council would still be included when we're pretty much for now ending the practice of during business hours having weddings in the chamber.
To Councilor Stott and then Councilor Cohen.
Sure. So I would say I would leave that in just in the off case that she might have one scheduled already, but also, I don't know, like if Prince Harry comes here and says he wants to have a wedding in council chambers, we'll probably be like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't know. It just leaves it open. It would require full council approval. I don't think, it's something that would happen. I honestly could go either way on that. But
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, not being a member of the committee. I agree with that. All this order is saying is no weddings during business hours and with a 45-minute, buffer. And so we're not eliminating weddings in the chamber. We're only eliminating them during work hours. So I would leave it in there.
Councillor Merkel.
Yes, maybe it would be clearer if we were leaving the council approval in there, because what if there was a wedding previously booked that, that was an oversight we don't know about? We could leave in the language that was already, that has already been scheduled. If that's still a concern, if we're not 100% that someone's already booked a wedding, because it wouldn't be on them that they didn't know, they wouldn't be having it here during business hours. Just throwing it out there.
Councillor Presnitsky.
Thank you, Chair Varela, to the rest of the committee. Are we saying that there's no weddings now because it's not ADA accessible? Is that the reason why there's no weddings, is because it's not ADA accessible? So if that's the reason, why should we not make this immediately take steps to make it ADA accessible?
Councillor Marcello.
Thank you, Chair. So I think as we brought up tonight, the accessibility issue is twofold, right? It's the physical accessibility issues in the room with the furniture. Then there's also the emotional, psychological crashing a wedding issue. The way they set them up, the officiant is up here and the bridal party's over there, right? The whole idea is to put a temporary halt on this stuff until we can write a policy, which also lights a fire under us to get this done, right? If we can come up with a policy for the use of the room that addresses these issues and we can bring the weddings back, then great. But I think until we have a real clear understanding about whether that is an accessibility issue, whether you're intimidated about coming through, every other thing we've talked about that's in this room is a public ceremony or something, a flag raising ceremony, or the firefighters induction. That's public. You can blend in, you can come through, you can stay and listen a little bit and then go through. Like, it's public. The doors aren't closed. They're just public things. But a wedding is a private thing, and you don't want to crash anyone's wedding. That's just, so I think we just need to answer some questions and get the policy written. So.
Councillor Hepworth.
We will take a vote, I promise. So not being a member of the committee, so I won't be voting on this, but I guess just giving my 2 cents on this portion of it, I think that with no new weddings being scheduled right now, I think it does make sense to err on the side of caution here. None of us are ADA experts. The argument makes sense to me, but I would like to hear, I don't know if, Lisa, it would be appropriate to bring it before the Disabilities Commission just to get some feedback on not just wedding ceremonies, but just ceremonies in general in the council chambers, and what the appropriate recommendation here is. Because, and I think that one point that has not been made is the role that weddings play in general for people who aren't able to afford a wedding at the Hawthorne Hotel, understanding they'll have the ability to do it after hours and before hours potentially, so that makes sense. But if we are able to do weddings throughout the day and leave it ADA accessible, I think it does provide a service to folks that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it. But just wondering if the Disabilities Commission would be willing to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly do that. I'm not trying to minimize our authority, because we have a really big role in the outdoor dining, which we're all really happy and proud of. We don't really set policy. There's definitely an advisory group. So, and between now and whatever's happening next, I'll do some more deeper research too.
Yeah, I think just any point of authority that was outside of this council chamber, I would take the advice and recommendation of somebody who's been thinking about this more deeply probably than some of us and myself have. But yeah, again, I think that if there are no new weddings being scheduled right now, we err on the side of caution, as this has been an open question for a very, very long time. And then I would like to see this brought back and to understand this more deeply. Thanks.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense too, because a lot of times we think with accessibility, it's mobility, right? But there's all kinds of issues that can make somebody uncomfortable and anxiety. And, I agree. I wouldn't want to walk through, but like I said, I'm working here, so I would get through and go, but I completely understand, and I will do some research on that.
I think I would also be just curious to know what people think about walking through a swearing-in ceremony or anything else that's happening here. Maybe it's different than a wedding, but I just would be curious what the thought process on that would be and what we would need to do as a body to make sure that this is accessible at all times of day. Thanks.
Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Just going to throw this out there now that we're all sitting here, and we know that we're not ADA compliant. Somebody might want to talk to Beth tomorrow to find out what our liability is right now, since we all agreed to it. Before anything's held in chambers, I think getting this ADA compliant is going to be a top priority.
I'm sorry, can I come back? No, I mean, I think that, right now as we are, although Councilor Hapworth, if you move back any further, I'm going to have to move that table. But this is what happens, right? Like, things get moved. We hear this even with the outdoor dining. Well, my table was over there, somebody moved it, or the umbrella wasn't there, and now it is, and it's in the way. So it goes back to our enforcement and everybody being aware. So I would say that we are accessible. This room is accessible as it is right now. You can get, like I said, the elevator. I mean, if the elevator is out of service, then we have an issue, and then we would need to deal with that. But that's something we can't, you can't foresee that, right? Like, the elevator could be broken and out of service, and we move people over to, our employees, they either work from home or we move over to 98. But right now, I'm not the building commissioner, but I don't think you need to close this room for inaccessibility, because we've got a full wide width door. There's ample room here, more than enough, and we've got at least a 36-inch path here that goes to the elevator.
No, I'm not saying close the room. I'm just saying we need to be a little more cautious, even during our council meetings, to make sure that we are compliant when anything's being held in this chambers, until we come up with a permanent solution. That's my point.
Agreed. And I think signage, this area needs to be clear at all times, right? I think we just assume we're going to keep it clear, but I think that, if you see something, again, it goes back to enforcement. We're all aware now, right? So if any of you see anybody encroaching over, I'm sure any one of you is going to say, hey, move back. But I hear you. I completely respect it. And I think we can get there. I think we are there. But this, again, is temporary once the furniture gets moved, which is why we need to put something a little more permanent.
All right, Councilor Stott, you guys are killing me. Go ahead.
I'd like to amend my motion that I have to remove the without prior approval of the city council in the second paragraph of the existing order. So my motion would be: order effective immediately. No newly scheduled wedding or marriage ceremonies may be performed in council chambers during city hall business hours, including 45 minutes prior to the opening and closing of city hall.
All right, seconded by Councilor Merkel. All right, so right now we have a motion to amend with striking without prior approval from the city council. All right, so we have a second on that. All those in favor? Let the record show. I see 4 hands plus my own. The matter carries. Great, so that's done. All right. Oh.
And then we're going to vote on the motion.
Sorry, thank you. I forget.
Just vote on the motion itself.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, that's right. We made an amendment. So yes. So
motion to refer this to the committee with the recommendation for adoption.
All right, thank you.
As amended.
Councilor Stott motions that this go into positive recommendation as amended to the full council, seconded by Councilor Merkel. All those in favor? Let the record show. I see 4 hands plus my own. That matter carries. Thank you. All right. So second, we have, and hopefully this is quick, Councilor Stott.
I'm sorry. I just had one other point of clarification that I wrote down per the comments before. People can still come in and have wedding ceremonies during the day in the city clerk's office. So I just want to make that clear. If they can't afford the Hawthorne Hotel wedding, the city clerk office is available during business hours.
Thank you.
Or any of the rooms across the street.
All right, so our second agenda item, we have the data around the count of marriages performed in City Hall. Does anyone have any discussion on this? Councilor Marcillo.
I move that we keep this in committee.
Councilor Marcillo motions to move this to committee, second by Councilor Merkel. All those in favor? Let the record show, I see 4 hands plus my own. That matter carries. All right, so the last order is creating a policy concerning city council chambers as well as reviewing the Salem Code, Chapter 2, Section 10, use of the council. 1 second. All right, so Beth could not be here tonight. Beth did give us her opinion on the matter, on what things we could do with this. I know that we're gonna have a longer conversation about a policy, but if we did take any action tonight, these are 3 scenarios that we could vote out tonight. And like I said, this is just food for thought. So the first option would be take no official action, but ask the clerk to propose a solution to maintaining access that is obvious to those utilizing the chambers. The second action that we could do would be amend the delegation to the city clerk by placing a time and manner restrictions on the use of chambers and anteroom. For example, a condition may be that if any wedding or other event were to take place in City Hall is open, plus 15 minutes before and after office hours, then there is a requirement of making a designated roped/sanctioned ADA pathway from the mayor's office to the restroom elevator. So that's option 2. Option 3, rescind authority delegated to the clerk and require permission of the city council to use the chamber and anteroom. So these are 3 scenarios brought to us by our city clerk, our city solicitor, apologies. So under discussion, Councilor Harvey and then Councilor Marcillo.
I make a motion to keep this in committee and continue to stay co-posted. There's way too much discussion for this. This has to be, and I think we might want to invite the fire prevention and maybe the building commissioner when we get to a certain point in regards to occupancy for the room itself, and obviously our ADA compliant.
All right, under discussion, Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Varela, not being a member of the committee. And I appreciate if this stays in committee, but I'm going to express my my preference for number 3. As a matter of fact, before the meeting, Councilor Harvey brought this up, that we do all sorts of things. And so that would be that it would be, all these things would be the approval of the council. And Councilor Harvey brought this up to Councilor Prosnewski and I. We do block parties, we do all sorts of things that come in front of the council, and we vote on it. But I want to bring up something that happened today, which was an email from our city clerk to all the city councilors bringing up the flag raising policy. And it's ironic because in the email to us, she highlighted number 2 of the policy that we voted on just last November 20th of 2024. If the requester wishes to hold a speaking program associated with the flag raising, it shall be held either in city council chambers, if available and approved for such use by the city clerk/city council, or in the first floor meeting room at City Hall Annex or Town Hall, Old Town Hall. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there was a Polish flag raising for Independence Day, or Constitution Day, I'm sorry, where the person who organized it, Mike Lutrzakowski, asked about it and was told that he could do the speaking engagement in the City Hall Annex. Okay? In the email, it specifies, ironically, my wife coming in and asking for something for flag raising for the AAPI flag raising, which is this Thursday. And that the city clerk thought that this could involve, if you let one group speak, then everyone's allowed to speak. Went to Chief of Staff Peterson. What was left out, which I learned from my wife before this email, was that the AAPI flag-raising speaker ceremony was going to be in the room across from the city clerk's office, which I think, probably to Councilor Harvey's point, would be a fire hazard if there was more than 6 people in that room. And now it's been scheduled for the annex. Whether it was the Polish flag-raising speaker arrangement, which I know not one councilor was asked for our approval, or this next one, this shows the discrimination that's happening on ceremonies in this chamber. If indeed the policy, as the city clerk points out, says approval, that it can be held in the city council chamber with the approval of the city clerk or city council, why weren't we, any of us, consulted about those flag raisings? And this is what upsets me about this whole process. It's either fair or it's not, and this is not an equitable process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair Varela. Just something short. I didn't know if we might want to include the language for the creating a policy concerning the use of city council chambers and add "and the anteroom."
It's in there.
I just thought that should be added.
So
I guess I'm offering a friendly amendment to Councilor Harvey's motion to keep in committee creating a policy concerning the use of the city council chambers and add the language "an anteroom." Thank you.
All right.
I would second that.
All right. That's seconded by Councilor Marcello. So just for clarity, we're just adding the anteroom, making consistent with Chapter 2, Section 10 for ADA. All right. So we had a second. This remain in committee under discussion. I'm sorry.
Amendment first.
Yep. All right. So we're going to do the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? All right. Let the record show. Say 4 hands plus my own. That matter carries. And Councilor Stott.
Thanks, Chair Varela. I'm just curious what, if any, are takeaways for us to have the next conversation on this? Like, what are some things that people are looking for to have at the next meeting for us to discuss? I mean, I know obviously the city clerk needs to be here at the next meeting, but like, what else? Like, what are we looking for? A list of scheduled events? Are we looking for, do we need more feedback on what that conversation would entail? Like, I know I personally am really interested in the furniture rules. I want to know how, like, what can be moved, what can't be moved, things like that, especially when it comes to the ante room. Like, there's a lot of old, Stella calls it the furniture graveyard sometimes.
Yeah.
You label all the broken chairs in there, although that has gotten a little better. So I know for me, the furniture piece is a big question, but I'm curious what other questions, like what, to help kind of mold our next meeting so we can come with information.
I think the next meeting, we should include an idea with when it comes to the formulation of the room, if we're going to amend it, we're going to change it, because that's going to have a lot to do with ADA accessibility and creating a policy that would be specific to the new makeup of the room. So if there was an order put in, I would definitely be consistent and have that meeting with a policy on the city council chambers as well. With that, go ahead, Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Varela. I'd also like for us to discuss, if indeed it ends up being number 3, that this committee that I'm not on formulates what the approval process would look like. Like, who it would go to? Would it go to a specific person? Would it go into this committee, a committee? How would it go? Because I think that's important. I think many of these events are time sensitive, and I feel very much like 2 flag raisings happened that potentially could have had speaking engagements in this room. I'm not saying that this, I'm not speaking for the council. I'm just saying, one of the things that we always talk about, whether it's a wedding or something else, this is a really cool room. And, whether it's Girl Scouts or people speaking on behalf of something or a swearing in ceremony, this is about as cool a room as we have in the city to do any event. And I think the fact that that our approval authority has been circumvented, I'm not comfortable.
Thank you. 1 second. Councilor Marcello?
So I'm going to second John's motion to keep this in committee. And I will just add that the comment about the flag raisings in particular, and I want to say this so that no one, it doesn't get dropped. The whole discussion around the flag raisings, and that could open us up to other things. And I'm looking at Lisa so that as we go through this, we can remember this. The flag raisings are approved by the mayor. And so this is just another in the list of the things, the events that the mayor brings in here, right? Like giving, a foreign dignitary a citation or something, which again, he has to get permission from the city clerk, which is why we need to think about if we're going to remove that authority from the city clerk entirely, we're going to be getting emails all the time saying, I need 6 votes to use the room. So we need to really think this through. And I think that, referencing the flag raising as opening up a can of worms about the use of the room is maybe not entirely true, because it's approved by the mayor's office first. And that's the only thing that, right? So I just wanted to get that out there before I forgot that. But seconding the motion to keep this in committee.
Thank you. All right. So
As amended.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Councilor Harvey that this remain committee as amended, seconded by Councilor Marcello. All those in favor? The record show, I see 4 hands plus my own. That carries. One more motion. Councilor Harvey.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you, everybody.